Hey, Twisted Listeners. What? Hey, Twisted Listeners. I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And I finally fucking did it.
Yeah.
Fucked up the intro, and I'm leaving it because I need the world to know that I'm not perfect because I know.
Yeah, I was hoping you would leave that in there. That was great.
Yeah. Damn it.
Yeah.
I
I'm
try
the one
so
whose
hard.
brain is scrambled eggs right now, and I should be fucking it up.
Dude, mine's fucked up too. Like, I have not been getting good sleep. It's the weirdest thing, like, not compared to you, obviously, but like, I am now at the point in my child's life where I am spoiled with like a full night's sleep every night. So when you don't get one, it's like upsetting. And my cat has been waking up at 5 a.m. every single fucking morning. And then it's cold here. So I have my heater on, but then I get too hot at night and then I wake up sweating. And it's like this whole, like, I'm disoriented.
Mm,
Like, I don't know where I
yeah.
am because I'm so hot. It's like my brain fries.
Yeah. I've also been doing like we have a really great space heater that's like a fake little fireplace and we love it. But like I've been doing a lot of like it's freezing, we turn on the fireplace, I wake up, I'm boiling, sweating, and I turn it off, and there's no in between. I wake up freezing or sweating.
Yeah,
Um
exactly. Exactly. And it's like
it's
no amount of blankets will help. And I don't understand that because that's
yeah.
never been the situation before. But it's like I either have to have like artificial heat on and then wake up sweating thinking I'm like at my grandma's house and I'm 7 years old, or I'm like freezing fucking cold and my feet feel like they're gonna fall off. I don't understand. And it's like 40 degrees. It's not that cold. Like, I don't get it. I don't know.
No.
Anyway, guys, there's our complaining. We are tired, we are cold, or
I have a
alternatively
baby.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a baby. I have a fucking dickhead cat. So there we go. We all have our
Oh no,
struggles.
I've also been woken up by cats throughout the evening before. So I've had like I called that my practice run before the baby, my cat screaming at me.
Yes.
Um
Yes. And I've been
so
woken up by babies. So this should be easier, but
yeah,
for some reason it's not. So I don't know what's happening.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna yawn. I'm sorry. This is a new topic. I chose it. It is,
Hmm.
I don't know how this came to me. Usually I'm like struggling to find one. But I chose murderers who were released only to kill again. And I don't know, I guess I was just thinking about the failures of our government, which are myriad, and I
Hmm.
found a way to parlay that into a topic. So here we are. Also, my case today is a redo of a case that I did many, many moons ago that I got some of the details wrong. And I know this because I went back to listen to it and I was like, girl, so lucky you didn't get called out. So thanks guys for not calling me out. But that's my story.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yes. But I chose, so you go first, right?
Yes. I'm like barely sentient, thank you. Everyone, I have a baby, so I don't sleep. I'm just running on fumes and caffeine and old Christmas cookies right now. But
You know,
all
I
right,
feel like
so
our banter is still pretty standard. We're doing okay. You're
doing
holding your
okay.
own.
Okay, I
You
don't
are.
sound like I'm dead.
I mean, a little, to be honest, but like, who cares? Like, my motor mouth will just run on both our behalfs. So,
Yeah. Um, All right. So I'm this is a horrible topic, and there's a lot of people that fit into this. And
Mhm.
it's a kind of, I think also I was going to say it's kind of fodder for people who are like there's a couple websites and blogs I noticed where people are listing out people who reoffended after they were released as sort of like fodder for like, you know, punish everyone for the billion years and the death penalty and this and this and this, lock up all the criminals, you know, for kind of that rhetoric that we don't really like.
Right.
But
Hmm.
it is what I find interesting though is how like lenient our system seems to be on like rape and murder, and like then really intense with like drugs,
Yeah, and
you
it's also
know.
like the people that they choose to release and the people that they choose to not release is really interesting. And in my story, especially, like we'll see that there was like dissent among people with regard to like whether or not to
Yeah.
release. And I always find that interesting where there's like after it happens, there will be like 50 people who are like, we told them not to release them, and here we are,
Yeah,
you know. But, you know, I think it obviously racism, classism, all that stuff plays into it. But sometimes it's random.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, my person here is the kind of poster boy for this topic, Mr. Kenneth McDuff. And also,
Oh,
he's kind of a, like, fairly well-known serial killer, so I was surprised we'd never done him before. He'd made a few previous lists and never made the cut.
yeah. Yeah. I actually
Lists of
don't know much
lists
about
of
him.
possible topics.
Right.
Um, so as a kid, I don't have a ton of background, but I do know the kind of type of kid and person that Ken was because he was a spoiled mama's boy and bully. I'm kind
Mm.
of, Harry Potter's shitty brother.
Dudley,
Do you know this character? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
You like
cousin
that vibe?
brother.
Yes, that's like the vibe I'm getting. Yeah, the cousin. That's the vibe, like that, like with Joffrey, from Game of Thrones, like
Ugh.
kind of that, like
Just like
can
the
do no
worst
wrong.
people alive.
Yeah, like an asshole, but like also spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. An
that
asshole
kind of
because their
vibe.
mom lets them be one.
Yes,
Okay.
that is exactly the guy. Yes.
Okay. Okay. You're painting
So
a
that's just
picture.
that's his personality.
Okay.
After losing a fight, he in high school, his little baby ego is so bruised that he quits high school.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, yeah. He
Um,
works for his father's business, doing like pouring concrete and doing manual labor instead. And in 1964, at age 18, Ken started his life of crime here. He got 12 burglary convictions because I
Holy
guess he did
shit.
12 burglaries by the time he was 18, kind of in a
Holy
spree.
shit.
He got
Yeah.
12 concurrent 4-year sentences, which means they all happen at the same time, unfortunately. So
Dumb.
it's not 36 years, it's just
I mean,
4 years.
36 years for burglary is kind of a lot
That's
anyway.
stupid.
But also,
Yeah.
like, he got beat up in high school and he ran away, which, like, stupid. But then he got caught doing burglaries and he didn't stop. Like, he didn't get embarrassed about that. Like, that's kind of weird.
No, burglaries are cool,
Yeah.
I guess, for him. Yeah. So
All
he
right.
got paroled. He got paroled in 1965. So he didn't even serve 4 years. He got paroled like a year in.
Jeez. Okay.
Um, yeah. So his mom, by the way, there is a little bit out there about his mom, Addie McDuff. She was known to be just an all-around kind of shitty person.
Mm,
And she really, like I said, lavished the gross spoiling on her two sons, Ken and his brother Lonnie.
okay.
She got the nickname around the neighborhood, quote, the pistol packing mama, which is actually pretty cool. Uh,
Well, depends on why. I mean, the name sounds cool, but
It could be
why?
cool. It
Yeah.
could be
Could
cool.
be. Could be.
But the reason why is not cool. It's because she used a gun to threaten the school bus driver after he kicked her other son Lonnie off the bus. I'm sure because Lonnie was being a fucking asshole.
So she pulls a gun.
I'm
I
sure
mean,
there was just cause.
this woman
Yeah.
sounds like a total piece of shit, honestly.
Yes. So you get a little picture.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there's this type of guy who's usually the mom coddles them and they become like an entitled fucking prick. And I feel
Yes.
like I've met many of them. I know many of them
Yeah. Same.
currently, and
Same.
I call them king babies.
I love that.
King Mr. Baby Man. I kind
Mhm.
of like speak of them derivatively like that. So like
Yeah.
Ken is
I
here.
like
He's a
that.
king. He's a king baby. Um, so in 1966, little Ken here is 20, and he was out at a bar drinking with a recent friend slash new coworker of his, Roy Dale Green.
Hmm.
He had been telling Roy at work and at this night out that he had just recently raped and killed two young women.
Holy
And he goes
shit.
into graphic detail about this. Yeah. And he says he wants to go out and find women to assault that night. But Mr. Green here, Roy, says he didn't take it seriously. And he's just like, lol, like boys' time, I guess, locker room talk.
Locker room talk?
Um,
Like, what kind of locker rooms are you hanging out in, dude? Like, what the
yeah, yeah,
fuck?
yeah, yeah. That kind of thing. Boys will be boys.
Jesus.
So later that night, they're driving around, and he tells Roy, Ken does, that he wants to go look for girls, and Roy's like, "Okay, dot dot dot. What are we doing?"
Right.
Um, he ends up going to a baseball field in a nearby small town where they come across a car where three teenagers are hanging out near it in a parking lot in the parking lot of the baseball field.
Hmm.
They are 17-year-old Robert Brand, his girlfriend, 16-year-old Edna Sullivan, and then Brand's 15-year-old cousin Mark Dunman.
Okay.
They had just been to the movies and they were just like hanging out as you do when you're a teenager in a parking lot. I know I hung out in a lot of parking lots in my life.
I got
Uh,
a loitering ticket for hanging out in a parking lot on top of
there
a
you
movie
go.
theater. So, yeah,
Oh, perfect. It
feel this
happens.
deeply. Yes.
Yeah. So Green says that Ken, and this is all, I'll tell you why, this is all his story in a little bit. But basically, we know what happened. Ken ordered the teens out to do what he says at gunpoint. He then forced
Right.
them to get in the trunk of their car, and he drove their car and tells Roy Green to take Ken's car, like kind of driving tandem, and they
Right.
go to a random field. There, he took Edna out of the trunk, and as they were pleading for their lives, he shot the two teen boys to death in the
Oh,
trunk.
shit.
Yeah.
And then left
He,
her. Great.
yeah, no, he takes Edna with them. So they're kidnapping her. He just leaves the two teen boys' bodies in the trunk. He tries to get it shut and he can't figure it out. So he just kind of like left them open air.
Like, fuck it. Just leaves
Um,
them.
yeah. They then drove Edna to another location where Ken and Roy sexually assaulted her.
Okay, so Roy was
Um,
down. Like, Roy wants to pretend that he thought it was a joke, but, like, at no point was he
right.
not down for this.
So Roy will later claim that he was forced to assault Edna, but we can, judge that if
Mm,
that's could be the case or not with our own minds. I don't know.
yeah.
He's complicit to some extent, to a great extent, but he's obviously he's telling us what happens. So,
Right. Okay.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's obviously complicit. But he's trying to like, I think he is the B guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no, I
Ken is
think so
the lead
too.
guy.
But
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
is a triple homicide probably and like a rape
Like,
and
would
it's
Roy have
like
done this on his own? No. Like,
but
Ken
he
is definitely taking the lead.
right, but he still did it. So,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so then this is really gruesome, trigger warning. Um, Ken takes a 3-foot broom handle he had in his car. He supposedly also sexually assaulted her with it.
Mm.
Then he horrifically strangles her with the broom handle by just literally crushing her windpipe.
Oh my God.
Hmm With it, yeah, just brute force. Ken is also a very large guy. He's kind of like a Richard Speck or Ed Kemper type serial killer, where he's like 6'5", like he's very large.
Jesus.
Um, yeah, foreboding or a formidable type dude.
Yeah.
So the two men then dumped her body in some nearby field, and went and got some Coca-Colas. They kind of had a nice evening, went about their business. The
Jesus.
next day, the bodies of the two boys are found. Obviously, they're like in the fucking open.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and very quickly, after this discovery makes the news and he knows that they've been found, Roy Green actually goes and tells police what happened. He actually felt really bad. He actually had remorse, and he tells his mom, who says he should go tell police, and he's like, okay. So he
Oh
does.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's a
Um,
little tiny bit of redemption.
Yeah, exactly. Like he definitely was complicit, but he felt bad enough to fucking tell.
Right.
So he told, and obviously he has an interest in doing so too, because he wants to make sure they know Ken was like more guilty, right?
Right.
So
Right.
he tells
Yeah.
on Kenneth. Ken is arrested, and they show police where Edna's body is, so she's recovered.
Mhm.
At trial, they point the finger at each other, but Green is clearly like winning in that battle because he came forward, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, and he acts like really scared of Ken on the stand. He's obviously like the meeker of the two guys, and Ken is just so physically intimidating
Right.
that when he's like, he explains that he's afraid of Ken McDuff, they're like, fair, you know?
Right. Right.
And Kenneth also acts like he does not really give a shit. Like he shows no remorse. He's very nonchalant about the whole thing on the stand at trial. So he's
Mhm.
not really endearing himself at all. Um, so yeah, he kind of loses this battle. is, by the way, Addie McDuff, Ken's mom, is outspoken about how amazing and innocent and wholesome her son is, despite everyone being like, this guy's a bully and an asshole and a criminal.
Like, my baby's the
Um,
best. He's such a
so
good little boy.
yeah, she's giving the vibes of Todd Colehep's mom. Remember her,
Oh
who
my
came out and was
God. Yes.
like multiple times, even after Todd Colehep confessed, was like, absolutely not. He's my sweet little boy. He's so innocent.
Not my
Um,
boy. Yeah.
I
No.
mean, yeah, he never would be a serial killer because he's going to be too cool. But I keep saying this as an expression of how much I love my son. I'd be like, I keep saying, if you were a serial killer, I would go on the news and tell everyone that you're great. I would be this mom. I would be this mom of who's like, no, everything he does is perfect, whatever, you know.
Right. Right.
So that's, but you know, I get it. You love your son.
Yeah.
Mom's gonna
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
but
Moms are gonna
clearly,
mom.
clearly, Addie has issues.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Speaking of my son, you can probably hear him. Yeah.
Uh-uh.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
No, no, not
Uh-uh.
yet. Okay,
Nope.
you will. You will. Um, okay. Okay, so where am I? Mom being mom. Oh, by the way, Addie also says that to the press that he has an alibi, which is that he was on a date with a girl, but they can't give her name or identify her because she was studying to be a missionary, and it would ruin her reputation.
Oh, right. So that's convenient. That's like they're doing the
And
honorable thing by not outing this
mhm.
nun to be. Like, what a fucking joke. Oh my God.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it also like makes him look even more wholesome, right? Of course, he's like
Right.
dating a very Christian girl.
Right. So
Um,
Christian that she can't admit she was on a date with him. Like,
yeah.
oh,
November 1966 here, he is convicted, Kenneth is, and gets the death sentence in the Texas electric chair at the time.
ooh. Wow.
Green gets a 25-year sentence, so lighter because of his, telling what happened.
Right. Right. They obviously
Not
believed he
that
was
light,
the
but yeah. Yeah.
wow. That's I mean, a triple
Light for Texas.
homicide and and like a rape, like that's pretty good. Yeah,
It,
especially
it's
for
it, and
Texas.
it's just light for Texas.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, oh, by the way, also after he gets the death penalty, they're like, "But your son's going to be executed. Wouldn't he want to just give the name of this girl on the date?" And she's like, "If he has to be executed to protect her honor, he will." She actually says that.
Fuck off, Addie. You're so like it's like that kind of like secondhand narcissism is so fucking embarrassing. Like how embarrassing is that for her? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ugh, like who do you think you're fooling, girl? She sounds like a serial killer. Like just deny forever and like think you're
yeah.
smarter than everybody. Oof. No thanks.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Um. So yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's
So
great.
although it's Texas, so they do try to kill him pretty quickly. It's the
Mhm.
60s too. They did executions even faster then.
Oh, I believe it.
They try to kill him quickly, but they don't. He actually wins two different stays of execution, so he was almost executed like twice.
What?
In the meantime, he gets a lawyer to fight his charges on his many appeals. And in the meantime, in 1972, the Supreme Court overturns the death penalty, and so his sentence is commuted to life.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. Um,
That's like a big win in Texas, especially considering the crime.
yeah. Yeah. The lawyer he got was apparently really good. He
Mhm.
apparently put together, and also, by the way, his mommy is still helping and paying for all this, for the
Of
lawyer
course.
stuff.
Of course.
Um, he gets a really impressive dossier. I love that word, by the way, dossier. He gets a, I use it a lot. He gets a really impressive dossier together of evidence that it was Roy Green who was the killer, and he just borrowed Ken's car, to do
Okay.
everything. Yeah. Um, and the parole board uh, seemingly will buy this story. But Ken, by the way, while this is all happening, actually tries to bribe one of the parole board members and gets a 2-year sentence for attempted bribery.
But then they're also like, but we're gonna believe you?
But even though that literally happened, they granted him.
So it worked. I mean, they got caught, but he probably actually did bribe somebody. I mean, how else could that possibly be?
Yeah, that's just wild to me.
It's really crazy.
So they granted him parole, but also the fact that they granted him parole isn't just the facts of the case, it also has a lot to do with prison overcrowding at the time. So a
Hmm.
few years prior, Texas prisons were found to be so overcrowded that they violated the prisoner's civil liberties. Which I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure they did
I feel like the stars are
and
just
do.
super aligning for this guy because literally
Oh yeah,
nobody cares about this shit ever. So it's really interesting that they're like suddenly randomly giving a
yeah,
shit and it just happens to like help this dude out.
yes, all the time. Yeah.
It's so weird.
So they were releasing about 150 inmates a day, and it seems like they were picking some real doozies here. And this included 20 people that got released from death row. So that's
That's
wild.
insane. They're like, we were gonna kill
Yes.
you, but it's crowded in here, so
Yeah.
go enjoy your life instead.
Psych.
Like,
Yeah, never mind. Yeah.
that's
Um,
wild.
so in 1991, the newly freed Ken McDuff goes back to Rosebud, Texas, his hometown. He goes back to college and he gets a job. So to some, it looks like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
he's getting his life back on track, right?
Mm.
No. No. Spoiler
Nope.
alert. This is a list that we have this week, so no. He quickly loses this job and he decides to get into heavy drinking, using crack cocaine, and of course, murdering and crime.
Hell yeah, that's his
Um,
thing. I mean, you do what you're
and
good at, right?
yeah, in his hometown, this total winner of a dude here, Mr. McDuff,
Hmm.
he happens to also be very racist, which tracks.
Yeah, sounds about
Uh,
right.
it's not Texas in the 60s or I guess 80s now, but still
Hmm.
90s. So this he basically pulls a knife on some random black people and calls them a bunch of horrific racial slurs and threatens them.
Nice. Classy.
They report that they call the police and this lands him in prison, but only for like a second because it's overcrowded. So they just let him go. And
Also,
that's
I'm
fine.
surprised he went into prison for that at all.
At all. Yeah,
Again, like
yeah.
that's surprising.
For
Yeah.
just a second. So now we have a second wave of crimes that I'm going to talk about that are horrific. And what Ken gets up to within days of his release is
Hmm.
basically violently sexually assaulting and murdering at times sex workers in Central Texas. Oh, here we
Wow.
go.
So just like right
Um,
away.
yeah, right away. In October 1989, 29-year-old Parker's body is found dumped in a field. She had been beaten and strangled, and she'll later be connected to this to Ken here.
Hmm.
This one's really horrific. One night, Ken drives up to a police roadblock, and he had sex worker Brenda Thompson in the car, and she was pounding and violently resisting, pounding the windows, and she literally when she sees the
Hmm.
police road stop, she kicks the windshield.
What the
And she's
fuck?
cracking the windshield like this. Props to her for just like a second because that's like a badass move, kicking the windshield. Um,
Yeah.
like she's giving it everything she has to bust out of this fucking car. And cops see that and they're like, holy shit. And he literally drove at the cops. They had to jump to escape being run over. And he
What the
drives
fuck?
at them and through the roadblock, busting through the like wood or whatever they have up the actual road things, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and he escapes the clutches of police. They give chase, but he turns his lights off and goes through some like weird side roads, and literally they lose him.
And then
Yeah.
he kills her.
Yes. So he
Oh my
bound
God.
and tortured Brenda Thompson to death. Yeah. It's unclear how he tortures his victims to death, but that it's used the phrase is used a lot that he tortured them to death. So we can
That's,
just use our imagination.
oh God, dude.
Yeah. Her body was not discovered until 1998.
Holy shit.
Yes. But this incident is like registered, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Um, so days after this, a sex worker named Regina Moore, who's 17, so
Oof.
a child,
He's a fucking
child,
child. Yeah.
yeah, disappears, and she had been seen with Ken last. So that's also like there's always witnesses putting them with this guy, this
Hmm.
convicted like
Right.
rapist and murderer. But police are like meh to Regina and Brenda to their cases because they're sex workers. So of course the
Who
Texas
fucking
cops are like
cares?
meh. Yeah, who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
Her body is also not found until 1998.
Jesus.
So it's really the witness statements putting them together, and the fact that she disappears is why she's on this list.
Right.
He's also suspected of the murder of 23-year-old Cynthia Gonzalez, who was found in a rural area off a highway right around this time. So it's like boom, 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 spree killing here.
Yeah, he's just going for
Um,
it. He's not wasting any time.
Nope. December 1991, he and his buddy Alva Worley go to Austin, where they spot 28-year-old Colleen Reed, who was out doing errands and getting her car washed. At the car wash, Ken violently abducts her. I believe this is daylight, and there's multiple witnesses because
God.
he grabs her by the throat like fucking Darth Vader.
This dude is
Um,
bold, if nothing else. And really, there is nothing else.
And he's gigantic and scary and
Right.
has no fear. He thinks he can get away with everything, and he has. So
Yeah.
he throws her in the car by the throat. He and Alva take her to another area where they tortured her. Apparently, I did get this. They tortured her with burning cigarettes on her. Um,
Oh.
as one thing. They then sexually assault her, and then Ken killed her, according to Alva, who we'll talk about.
Hmm.
He then murders sex worker Valencia Joshua in 1992 by strangulation. She was last seen with him, according to witnesses, and he dumped her body at the college she attended. Another link to
Jesus.
him. Then Melissa Northrup is the next victim, or I think the last victim that we know of. She was pregnant,
Oh.
and yeah. And unfortunately, she works the night shift at a gas station in Waco where Ken had also
Mm.
briefly worked, so he kind of like frequents it.
Hmm.
One night, Ken's car broke down near the gas station, and he had actually been telling people that he wanted to go rob this gas station. And he specifically was telling people that he noticed this like pretty young woman who was working the night shift alone. So he was like already profiling
Yeah,
it and
because
sort of
why
targeting
not?
her. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
his car breaks down, he just takes the opportunity. He's like, "Oh, I'll go do that thing I was meaning to do. I'll go like kill this girl and rob this
Right.
gas station."
Yeah.
So he actually asks a coworker friend of his if he wants to go like do this with him and rob the store, and he's like, "No, thanks."
Yeah.
um, but he's making it known that he wants to do that. Um, so Melissa was found still bound with rope. She had also been strangled to death with the rope, and her
Jesus.
body was found in a gravel pit nearby. Um,
Good God.
So Ken's car was found near the gas station, so he's quickly suspected. That's a pretty slam dunk thing there.
Hmm.
And police put this together with all the witness statements, putting him together with the other statements and his previous record. And they figure out that, Ken's their guy. Of course, it takes them like a while, and it takes them, I think, they have to have some victims that are not sex workers for them to start caring.
Hmm.
Um, but, which is what happens.
Yeah.
So they they actually look into Ken and find that he had been selling acid. So they put together a warrant for that just to get him behind bars.
Holy shit.
Um, yeah, which is a federal like felony or some huge thing. And I'm like, really? I'm rolling my
Yeah.
eyes. Um, yeah, so they get that together quick, of course. So Alva, by the way, also folds when they question him. Alva Worley, his accomplice in the murder of
Right.
Colleen Reed, and Alva tells them everything about his and Ken's kidnapping. So things are closing in around Kenneth McDuff. It's like gigs up.
Hmm.
In response, Ken moves to Kansas City and changes his name, trying to live under a new identity, but he cannot escape the notoriety he's just gained because a new coworker at the job he quickly gets sees him profiled on America's Most Wanted and is like,
Hmm.
"Oh, that's this new guy who just started working at my company, right?" In spring 1992, this America's Most Wanted call worked. Oh, we should do people who were caught through America's Most Wanted. That would
Ooh,
be fun.
that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
best of that show.
Hmm.
Um, In spring 1992, he's arrested in Kansas City by U.S. Marshals. He's charged with capital murder just for Melissa Northrup's murder in Texas. Like, I guess they're like, why bother when it's a capital case? Why bother with the multiple cases? Um,
Right.
he's found guilty, and in 1993, he gets the death penalty again.
Okay.
Um,
So this time they're like, oh, we're serious this time. You've got like
Yes.
45 more people, so are they
Yeah, you
going to
got your
kill you
get
too?
out of death row card. You got the get out of death row free card like once and not again.
Right.
Um, he tried his best to appeal and plead his innocence because that's like his vibe, but it did not work. Once all his appeals ran out, just a few weeks before, when it's like, look, you have absolutely nothing left that you can do,
Hmm.
he finally revealed the location of Colleen Reed's body.
Oh,
Um,
and that's how they found her.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Hmm.
And just for fun, he also confessed to the Austin yogurt shop murders.
What?
Yes, that's a crazy ass detail about this case. And it's officially in the official shit about the case, it's officially believed that this is bullshit because he gets like most things wrong about
Okay,
it.
so he's just being one of
Yeah.
those guys. Okay, love that.
He's just trying to like, have this big dramatic moment at the end, I think, and sound
Hmm.
like a bigger serial killer than maybe he even was, although he was one.
Right,
Um, but he's trying to like make himself even more grandiose at the end there. He's like, okay, well, I might as well be if I'm gonna be a serial killer, I'll just like lean into it at the end here.
right.
Um, but it is wild that he was like right there, killing in Austin at that exact time.
Hmm.
He did also like a robbery of a business with one of his crimes, so it's definitely not like impossible to imagine him doing that. Um,
Hmm.
Frankly, or he's not afraid to attack groups of teens, like groups of people. So I definitely don't think it's impossible to imagine. But I get like again, he got everything wrong. But there's a couple blogs and people still defending him as a suspect to this day.
Actually saying they think that it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know about that. Okay,
yeah, probably not. But
probably not.
it's crazy he was there. And that happens a lot where there's like a crazy murderer who was like he just happened to be hanging out at the time. You're like, okay.
Right, right.
Um, so he was executed in 1998, and my last detail I will share with you his last meal, which is really lame. Don't get excited. I guess he wanted a steak, but they didn't want to give him one, so they shaped a burger in the shape of a steak.
What?
That's it.
That's ridiculous. This guy
It's
has
so
issues. So
it's
while
so
you were
sad.
talking about him, I looked up his mom, and I'm really glad that she outlived him because she had to know that that happened. So,
Oh, nice. She
yeah,
did. Yeah.
she did. Fuck her. What a fucking dick. Woof. Well, that was a fucking story and a half. My God. I didn't realize. I didn't really know about that guy, but he's fucking terrifying, and he's huge.
Yeah.
Also, he's a
Yes.
gigantic, ginormous.
Kind of Richter Spec vibes. Like he's very tall. He's very frightening.
Yeah, really crazy. I thought Richard Speck was tiny.
No, I thought he was really tall.
Let's
Really?
look him up.
I
Richard
could have sworn he's
Speak, I
tall.
just
Tall.
wrote.
He's like tall and
But
skinny.
he's like a beanpole, right?
Yeah, but he's
Okay,
tall,
maybe he
right?
is. I can't find it. Usually they give his like height, but they don't have his height. I don't know. Richard Speck height. You guys are gonna go with us. Six
So
one.
six
Six
foot one
one.
inches. I'm right. I'm right.
Okay, yeah.
He's pretty tall.
Yeah. All right. Richard Speck. Fuck that guy. That guy's a creepy fuck.
How tall is Ed
Anyway.
Kemper? He's like 6'7".
Yeah, 6'7", 6'8", something like
It's like
that.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna look up Ed Kemper's height. 6'9". Oh my god, 6'9". Fucking ginormous. Big boy. He's a big boy. He grew up just down the street from where I am currently, so that's always a fun thing for me to know. Um, okay, anyway, so I'm gonna do my story now.
Okay.
This one is less upsetting, I guess. Not upsetting.
Okay.
It's not less upsetting. It's just more understandable, I guess, what happened in a way. Whereas yours, it's like, why the fuck did they let him out? Anyway, okay, so here's the story of Dwayne Lee Little. Now, I have talked about this guy in the past. Like I said, I got some of the details wrong, and I'm going to correct it now. This is my redemption arc in
Okay.
the format of a
Oh
murder
yeah, yeah, yeah.
tale. So,
Great.
Dwayne Lee Little, he spells his name. Okay, I've seen it two ways: Dwain and Dwane. Either one works. But either way, this story begins in 1964. This all takes place in Oregon, PS, and including
Okay.
Springfield, which is next to Eugene, which is where I used to live. So it's all kind of areas I know about. So we have 16-year-old Orla Faye Phipps. She's a resident of Springfield, Oregon, and she's a pretty typical teen for the time at that area. in that area, I should say. It's farmland. It's still like sparse. It's not as like Eugene is more of a major city than a lot of cities in Oregon, but Springfield is like it's like Eugene splash slash Springfield. And Springfield is definitely the more like farm town side of things. Also, side note, I realize the Simpsons aren't as relevant as they used to be, but this Springfield, Oregon is the Springfield that the town of Springfield in The Simpsons is modeled after. And that has,
Oh,
uh-huh,
Oregon. I never
yep,
would have based that,
yeah,
thought
which
that.
which is crazy because Springfield, Oregon is wild as fuck. But anyway,
The Simpsons feels like it's more like a Midwestern town.
well, I got to tell you, it's so funny. I was just talking to somebody the other day about how people who live in the country in Oregon have like a twang, and it's
Mm.
100% intentional because they want to be from the South,
I
kind of.
just feel like Oregon is such a specific vibe that I've never gotten that in The Simpsons.
Oh, I know it's weird. It's weird, but
Yeah.
it was confirmed like years ago. They confirmed
Okay.
that that's where it was.
All
So
right.
anyway, Oregon can have a Midwest vibe, I'm telling you. But in any case,
Yeah.
so it's 1964, 16-year-old Orla Faye Phipps. She lives in a house that's kind of a farm. Her big love was riding horses. She sang in the school choir. She was a member of 4-H, which is a farm club for kids. And like I said, horses were her thing. So her family had land, and pretty much every day after school, she would go out riding and she rode her horse on weekends as well. Now, most of the time when she went riding, she had either her mom or her brother with her, just in case. She's like small, like she's not small, she was 5'8", but like she's young, she's a girl alone. So if the horse kicked her off, if she got hurt, whatever, she would just have somebody go with her, which I think is really sweet. But it wasn't always that she had somebody. It was often, but not always. And on November 2nd, 1964, she went out riding alone. And I also want to note that like where Eugene and Springfield is, winters are cold, but it doesn't like typically snow. It's more of like a rainy area. So November 2nd, it's not like we're covered in a winter wonderland kind of thing. Just in
Right.
case people are trying to visualize, it's probably no snow. So her parents were waiting for her to return for dinner. And when she didn't, they became very worried because she always came home on time. She was a super reliable girl. They and her younger brother went out looking for her and even called in some neighbors and friends to help. One of these neighbors was 21-year-old Roy Stuckey. And about an hour after he started helping in the search, he found Orla's horse alone with no rider. Now, pretty shortly after that, like 20 minutes, he also found Orla's body on the ground, half hidden in brush and mostly nude. The police were called, but it was getting late at night because obviously she hadn't come home for dinner. It's the winter, so it gets dark at like 6 at the latest. So they had to leave guards overnight to watch the body and the crime scene until the following morning when medical examiners and others could better see to take in the scene, which I think is so fucking terrible that they just had to leave her body overnight. But this is the
That's
60s.
insane.
It's crazy, but it's the 60s
Yeah.
and it's in Oregon. They're not like at the forefront of like, technology and like, it's not like they have a huge
Yeah.
police force with a ton of money. So they did what they had to do. Now, when they did finally get to look at Orla's body, they realized it was in pretty bad shape. She had been smashed on the head with something heavy, which caused both a fracture in her skull as well as a large bruise. She also had quite a few stab wounds, including a bunch of defensive wounds, which means she did fight her attacker, at least for a time, which is kind of horrifying. Like, I almost wish that she'd been knocked unconscious. Because the thing that killed her was that her throat was cut extremely deeply, like almost decapitated.
Oh my God.
Yes. And further, this is also horrifying. It was found that she had been raped post mortem. So
Oh
whoever brutally
God.
murdered her raped her dead body, which is fucking insane. I know we don't like, there wasn't really DNA. We always talk about how there wasn't DNA like in the 60s and the 70s, but they did have a few forensic tricks, and one of those was blood type matching. And they also were able to like match hairs back then, which like I know now we know that like that's not like a real way to do things. Like that's not a pure science. Um, but back then they would use it. So they'd match blood type and they would like match hair samples, right? That was like kind of the best DNA they had. And police had blood and they had hair. So they asked all the people in the area to submit hair and blood samples. This, of course, included Orla's family, neighbors, schoolmates, anybody who would have come into contact with Orla or was just like a part of her life in any way. Most people did this without complaint, including Roy Stuckey, P.S. But there was some pushback. It wasn't from him. He was super cooperative and actually ruled out as a suspect pretty much immediately. So that was my little red herring I was throwing in there. I hope
Oh, you like confused us. Yeah.
I did. I tried. I'm very
Faked us
sneaky,
out.
very tricky. Uh, However, there was a 15-year-old boy who wasn't as cooperative. This boy was our guy, Dwayne Lee Little, who was both a neighbor as well as a friend of Orla's brother. So he also knew Orla. And apparently he had a sister,
Okay.
and Orla would go to his house to hang out with his sister. So they were familiar. They were not necessarily friendly. And in fact, somebody later said that like when she would go over to his house, he would like hide. But
Mm,
yeah, so who knows? But in any case, they knew
weird.
each other. So uh, it's fair to assume that he had seen her out on her horse, knew she went riding. Maybe he even accompanied her and her brother at some point. Like, I don't know. But in any case, he's definitely somebody who needs to give his DNA. And very luckily, his mother gave the okay for him to do so, or for the police to take it. And both his blood and his hair were a perfect match. Now, police investigated a bit further and found he was in the area at the time, had no alibi, and basically just had to be their guy, right?
Yeah.
So he was charged with murder, but this brutal fucking crime and post-mortem rape was perpetrated by a 15-year-old, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was 15 when he did this. It's fucking
That's
nuts.
insane.
Insane. This
Ugh.
also posed a problem because for as brutal of a murder as it was, and for as sexually depraved as it was, he's still a kid. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Oregon did what something that was kind of new and they tried him as an adult. This was not something I know in one of our very first episodes we talked about like the first time that ever happened and how it became like the norm. But back then it was very, very rare. But he was tried as an adult and he was given a life sentence.
Wow.
However, however,
Mm,
I don't know if Oregon law at the time imposed this for all criminals or only criminals under the age of 18, but he was automatically eligible for parole after 10 years.
okay.
So even though he had a life sentence, he's 15, he can get out when he's 25. And after 10 years of being a perfect inmate, he was released basically the first day he was eligible. So he's out of prison for a horrific, brutal rape and murder at the age of 25.
So 10 years? Less than that?
He did 10. He did like exactly
Oh,
10
okay.
because he was arrested when
Ooh,
he was 15 and he was sentenced when he was 17, but he got time served.
okay.
So, yeah, like 10 years to the day,
Oof.
basically, he's fucking
Wow.
out. Hmm.
I mean, I don't support, you know, juvenile like life sentences and all that, but this is a horrific
It's
murder, so it's a little ugh,
Well, the thing is, prison officials,
stuff.
right, they were blown away at how perfect an inmate he was and how much
Yeah.
remorse he had shown. And they
Okay.
believed that he was remorseful, right?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Now,
I'm like waiting for it.
well, I mean,
Hmm.
we know what this topic is, so we're getting
Yes. Yes.
there. They prison officials were
It's the topic isn't murderers who killed and then did a great turnaround with the rest of their
right.
life and
Right. Although we could do that. That'd be an interesting and really probably like
boring,
upsetting,
kind
but
of boring.
maybe
Yeah.
boring. Yeah.
No
Anyway,
one likes to
anyway.
hear people doing good.
I
No.
know. Yeah, that's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was released May 24th, 1974, and he went to live with his parents who were still in Oregon in a tiny town called I think Rutch or Ruck. I don't know. It's
Okay.
Ruch. It's not even a town, actually, which is why I don't know how to say it. It's a census designated area. But anyway, it's like, hundreds of people, not even like thousands. And he was living with them in 1974 at the age of 25. And now we're going to talk about another family also living in
Mhm.
Oregon. This family is the Cowdens. So we have 28-year-old Richard Cowden. We have his wife, 22-year-old Belinda, and they lived in White City, Oregon, which is just outside of the town of Copper. And this is a small town in southern Oregon. And it's very well known for camping and fishing. It had a stream running through it. It's actually now just a lake. Like the town of Copper doesn't even exist anymore. They flooded it. So it's like a ghost city under a lake, which
Okay.
is which is interesting. And also I grew up next to one of
Very
those.
cool.
And so did you.
That's
Lake Berryessa.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting and spooky. Every time I went swimming in Lake Berryessa, I thought about the town that was like literally under my feet, under the water. So
And also the Zodiac.
yes,
So,
well yeah, that too. We have the Zodiac. That's something that they don't have in Copper, but instead they have this case. So
yeah.
in any case, Copper was a town at the time. Now it's not. So this couple, Richard and Belinda, had two kids, 5-year-old David Cowden and 5-month-old Melissa. The family was doing really well. They were happily married, had been married for a while, I think since she was like 17. Richard was working in logging and making great money. Everything was going their way. The weekend of September 1st, 1974, the couple had planned to do some work around the house and just kind of like take it easy, like not go anywhere. It was Labor Day, I think, or Memorial Day. I don't know. I always get the two confused. But anyway, it was a holiday weekend. And Richard was like, well, let's do some work around the house. Let's get our house looking nice, and then we'll just like chill out at home. He was going to borrow a work truck to do some of this work. I think he was going to like pour some gravel, but the work truck broke down. So they're like, well, I guess we can't do that. Let's go camping because as I've mentioned before, if you live in Oregon, you camp. It's just a thing you do. You would not do well there. This would not Oregon would not be the
No.
place for you. No.
No. No.
So yeah, like we camped more when we lived there than I have in the entirety of the rest of my life. So there you go.
Uh, yeah,
I
we
know.
all know how I feel about it. I won't repeat myself. I
I
don't
know.
yeah.
Well, this couple loved it. They had all their own camping stuff. They did it all the time. So they packed up their truck with their kids and their basset hound named Droopy, which I love.
Yes.
Very cute. And they set out for a
Droopy.
campsite. Poor little Droopy.
I mean,
On
it's
the
a descriptive of how that dog looks. Droopy.
Exactly. It's like a perfect name. And it's also like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon character, right? I
Yes.
think, yeah.
Oh,
Droopy dog.
yeah.
Yeah. So on the morning of September 1st, 1974, they're already camping. They've been there for like a day. And Richard and David walked to the general store in Copper to buy some milk for breakfast. Belinda and Melissa stayed back at the camp, probably so Belinda could like make breakfast and also just not make the walk because it was like maybe a quarter mile or a half mile from their campsite to this general store. And now this was the last time that anybody saw anyone from the family alive, and it was Richard and his son David. Later that night, Belinda's mother became worried because the family had said that they would come by for dinner on their way home from camping. They never arrived. So her mother, Belinda's mother, decided to go to the campground because she only lived about a mile from it, which again, very Oregon, and she wanted to see if something had happened. When she arrived, she found a really alarming scene. Belinda's purse was on the picnic table in the middle of the camp with nothing missing from it, just sitting there.
Mm,
Richard, mhm. Richard had an expensive watch that was found on the ground nearby, along with his wallet, which also had nothing missing from it. And the milk that they had bought at breakfast was still sitting out on the picnic table, half drunk. Now, her mother,
very creepy.
very creepy. To me, the most distressing part is that she found the family's diaper bag. And as you are learning, or will learn even more as the weeks wear on, you don't leave anywhere, you don't go anywhere without your diaper bag. Like
Absolutely
with
not.
with a kid that age, especially, like the blowouts are
Yeah.
so real. Like you could
Gotta be ready. Yeah.
yeah, you can't even go for a short walk. You are fucking asking for it if you do.
Mhm.
So now she's freaked out. She immediately calls police. They came in. They check. They admit. They say later, like in interviews, they're like the scene was spooky. They're like the milk in particular was just like haunting for some reason, and they couldn't find any sign of the family. No tracks, no trail of breadcrumbs, as they say, basically nothing. The following day, while police and volunteers are still looking for the family, their pup, Droopy, was found scratching at the door of the Copper General store. So glad he's
Hmm.
safe, but another bad sign.
Yeah.
At this point, police offer a reward of $2,000 for any information on the case, but they get nothing. The FBI would not get involved because there was no proof they had been kidnapped nor taken across state lines, which apparently are the two things that will get the FBI involved. And even the weirdest thing is that for a brief time, there was a theory that the family had disappeared by choice.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're like the family decided to disappear, even though like their truck was still there. Like everything was still there. This theory was pretty quickly dispelled because there was absolutely no reason for them to do that. They had no enemies, they were financially well off, they had everything going for them. They were super happy.
And the
Um
diaper bag, dude. Like, say no more.
yeah, I mean if you're going to disappear, you're still going to take your diaper back. Any parent
Yeah.
knows. Like even if that's going to give away the whole thing, you're still going to do it cuz nobody would be crazy enough to try to disappear with a 5-month-old without that.
And they're expensive. You can buy new diapers? Jeez.
Right? Exactly. Come on. Come on. The
Yeah.
watch, whatever. The diaper bag, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Dead giveaway. There was also a theory that the family had drowned while swimming because the only articles of clothing missing from their camp were their bathing suits, which I hate to think about that because, as we're going to find out, they didn't go missing or they didn't drown. They were
Right.
taken, and to be taken while you're just wearing a bathing suit is like, I don't know why that's like extra terrible for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel it.
Yeah, the reason that people were like they didn't fucking drown is because the creek was super low that time of year, and also, like, what are the chances that all 4 of them would drown? You know what I mean? Like, that feels
Yeah.
it's not impossible, but, like, the chances are pretty low, especially since the creek was, like, knee high at most. So, these rumors and theories, even though they sound ridiculous, like, looking back, they super did not help the case, and even though people were still very worried and interested, police basically found nothing, and so there were as many theories as there was anything else in this case, like rumors and nobody had any idea what happened. Then, 7.5 months later, in 1975, two gold prospectors were out in the woods, not far from the campground, when they stumbled upon 4 bodies. The first body they found
Oh
was,
gosh.
I know, 4, including a 5-month-old, which is fucked up.
Ugh.
I know. The first body they found is Richard's, which was tied to a tree. And nearby in a small cave, they found Belinda and both children. Both Belinda and 5-year-old David had been shot to death with a 22 caliber gun. And 5-month-old Melissa, I am very sorry to tell you, had died by blunt force trauma.
Jesus Christ.
Like, who does that? It's
It's
fucking
insane.
insane. Insane.
Not that there's any like chill way to kill a baby, but like that's extra not.
You're going out of your way there. You're going out of your
Yeah,
way.
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Now, due to the exposure that his body had endured, experts were unable to identify how Richard died. And this lack of evidence started another brief but stupid theory that maybe Richard had killed the family, then committed suicide by tying himself to the tree to die, which is like
Wow.
idiotic to say the
No,
least.
that's not a thing.
Yeah. Also, where's the gun? Where's the gun?
No.
Why
No.
why wouldn't he just sit there and die? Why bother to
No.
tie yourself up if you're just going to do that? You know what I'm saying? Dumb.
Yeah.
So this fell flat pretty quickly for obvious reasons. And instead, police, continue. They had already started looking into people in the area, but they continue to more so now because they know that they have a murder case. So instead of sort of being like, well, let's, kind of check in on people, they're like, no, straight up, we know this family was murdered. Now we have to find who did it. So they had previously interviewed about 150 people in the area, and eventually they started circling one suspect in particular. And I bet you know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Dwayne Lee Little.
Dwayne.
Dwayne. Now, first, police suspected that whoever killed the family had to know the area well, as the cave wasn't easy to find and would have been only something a local would have known about. They also had information from a family from LA who had seen 3 people in a truck in the parking lot at the Copper General store on September 1st in the morning, like the same morning that Richard and David walked up to that store. This LA family said the three people in the truck looked like they were waiting for them to leave and had made the family uncomfortable to the point where they did, in fact, leave. Their description of the truck perfectly matched that of Dwayne Little's family truck, meaning he was there with his parents. Also, there was a miner's cabin nearby who claimed that, and there was a miner living in it, obviously. Uh, that's actually not obvious. There was a miner living in a cabin nearby, is what I should say. And he
Yeah.
claimed that Dwayne and his parents came to the cabin that day and signed his guest book. I'm not sure if this was ever confirmed, but it's in every single report that you'll read about this story. Dwayne and
Okay.
his family denied having anything to do with the killings or even being in the area at the time, but there were enough witnesses that police knew that they were lying. And kind of, I don't know if this is, this might just be coincidental, but Dwayne's father killed himself right after the Cowden bodies were found.
Mm,
So that feels like a guilty conscience,
it
weird
does.
timing, if nothing else, but like, I think there's a connection. So police are pretty sure it's Dwayne. They just need a little more evidence. So they went ahead and interviewed Dwayne's girlfriend at the time, who I think got scared and admitted to seeing him with a 22 caliber rifle just after the murders in early December. So they were killed in September. She saw the same 22 caliber rifle in December. This would match the one used in the murders, which was a bad look for Dwayne. But more importantly, this violated his parole, which he very much was still on. So when police searched his truck, they found the gun. And though they couldn't prove it was the murder weapon, they pressed charges just for having the gun, right?
Yeah.
Because he's on parole. But
Gotcha.
before, this is so important, before they pressed the charges, before they said, we're going to put you back in prison for gun charges because you're on parole, the lieutenant working the Cowden family case said, I will give you this very sweet deal. I will drop
Mm.
these charges, which will absolutely send you back to prison, if you take a lie detector test regarding the missing Cowden family. And no matter what happens, I cannot use the results of that test against you, but I will not press gun charges against you if you take this test. What did Dwayne do
Seems very nice. That seems very nice of them to
to
offer.
do that? Yeah, but Dwayne
Yeah.
refused.
Wow.
Yep. He refused to take a lie detector test that could not be used against him in court and instead went back to prison for gun charges. All he had to do was take the test. So to
Wow.
me, that feels like guilt. So instead, he went back to prison for 3 years. He was never, ever charged for the Cowden family murders. And to this day, those murders remain officially unsolved. But the story does not end here because that is not officially, those are not officially murders he committed. And
Oh
to
my
be
God.
fair, to be fair, this isn't a pure version of the topic that I chose, and I will admit that. But we're going to keep going. Now, the story doesn't end there. Like I said, Dwayne served only 3 years on this charge, maybe not even a full three. I think it was closer to two because he was released in 1977. He laid low for a few years. Then in 1980, he could not help himself and he fucked up again. I want to mention that before his release, police begged the parole board to keep him in prison, saying he is dangerous. He killed this family. We know he did it. Please don't let him out. You need to keep him in. Prison officials did not give a shit. They said they were so sure he was rehabilitated. There was a quote, I don't know exactly what it was, but one of the prison officials essentially said, like, I'd bring him home to my mother for dinner. So they were like, this guy's great. He was another model, inmate. So they just let him go.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
police in the Eugene Springfield area were horrified, but there's nothing they could do. So anyway, he's living in Tigard, which is just south of Portland. And on June 2nd, 1980, Dwayne here picked up a hitchhiker on the side of the 99 highway. This woman's car had broken down and she was trying to get help. She was trying to have, somebody take her somewhere to like get her car towed. And she was also 8 months pregnant. Just want to throw that in there.
Oh my
But
God.
we know that this man has no fucking morals or cut off. He'll kill a
Yeah.
5 month old.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
instead of helping her, he took her to an on ramp near the 5 freeway that was deserted, where he raped her and stabbed her and left her for dead. She was able to
Wow.
roll down a hill while 8 months pregnant.
Ugh,
and crawl back to the road, having
oh
been
my God.
stabbed, where she was found and helped by passersby.
She
Now,
survived?
she survived. And because
Oh
she
my
survived,
God.
he was able to identify Dwayne, who was arrested and charged with her rape and attempted murder. So we're now on number 3 for this motherfucker, which is
Wow.
insane. And luckily, this is finally what did it. And he was found guilty on all 3 counts and given 3 life, or on both counts, and was given 3 life sentences. I think the third count was kidnapping. So as of right
Okay.
now, he's still alive and in prison, and only one prisoner that's like been his roommate or whatever has ever said anything along the lines of him admitting to killing the Cowden family. Most inmates are like, he's the kind of guy that will never talk. You'll never get him. Like, you'll never know for sure. Um, so yeah, I think the Cowden family murders will never be solved, but at least this
Oh my
piece of shit
God.
is going to die in prison. But it's crazy what it took to get him in there, like permanently.
Wow. Yeah, another person like kind of Duff who's just like failing and failing and not get or like it's like
Yeah,
the cliche of failing upward. It's like no
yeah,
matter what you do,
hmm,
everything's he's fine.
yep,
Like
yeah.
it's
So
incredible.
there it is. Sorry if that was a bit long,
Wow.
but like there's 3 fucking parts of the story. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, there it is. There it is.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Part 1. Did you pick your second case for this? I'm really stuck between a couple. I really wanted.
No, we can negotiate. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm looking at Arthur Shawcross. I just want you to know that.
Oh, yeah,
I
good
know.
one.
I know. But we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see,
That
guys.
guy's got some I think Arthur Shawcross to me is peak serial killer interview clip on YouTube. So if you did him, you
Ooh.
definitely should go watching all the clips because he's very I mean, I hate to say iconic, but he's iconic.
He
Like
is
he's kind
iconic.
of like he's an iconic like serial killer YouTube clip to be watching.
Hmm.
He loves to talk a lot.
Yeah. I
He's just tickled by it.
and I
I was
know, and
thinking about doing Albert Flick, the one that you just highlighted. So
I know that's the one I was gonna do instead, but maybe I should do Arthur and you can do Albert. I want you to do
okay,
Albert. I think you'll do a better
okay,
job than me. Okay, cool. So now
no,
you
no
guys
worries.
know what
Okay,
we're gonna do next for the next. Don't look them up ahead of
live
time, guys. Let us tell you.
live behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert. Yeah,
negotiating for cases.
negotiation.
The Twisted
Yeah.
Listers negotiation table. Well, anyway, thanks guys for listening. We hope you enjoyed those. I really enjoyed your story, so I hope you enjoyed mine, and I hope everybody enjoys both. I think we picked some really solid cases this week. I'm gonna be a lot more intentional with my cases, with my topics this year. I'm gonna
Hmm.
really look into what I'm choosing before I choose it to make sure that we have really. I like everything we do. I'm not saying I don't, but I really want to focus on the quality of our stories. So I'm going to be doing a lot of heavy like research on the front end before choosing from now on because I really enjoy like I feel like it's more vibrant on our end when we're choosing cases that we really fucking love to cover. So
Yeah.
that's my Twisted Listers New Year's resolution, just in case you wanted to know. Anyway, thanks guys for listening. We appreciate you. Please like, rate, review, share with your friends, share with your family, share with everybody you've ever met. And
Yes.
until the second half of this epic list,
Hey.
off our
Liz.
list.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.